Welcome folks to episode 5 of the Community Resource Centre Business Planning Online via Westlink. In this episode we're going to be looking at brainstorming as a tool to help you identify projects and using another tool called mind mapping as part of that process. It's going to be a fantastic action-packed episode. I'm joined by John Denton and the wonderful Ros Worth. And guys, welcome aboard. Great to have you back again.
Great to be here. Looking forward to this.
Yeah. So in this episode, the things we're going to be covering are, we'll do a quick recap of episode 4, then we'll be going into some more details on using a tool called mind mapping, and then we'll be taking that through to do some further brainstorming and prioritization of your project. So by the end of that, you'll have a really simple tool that you can use back at your CRCs to identify projects and put a priority on them so you're really clear on where you're taking it forward. And as you know, we're halfway through now, episode 5, and this is part of the 10 episode program, and the whole aim of this process is to help you develop a business plan for your CRC using your workbook and the business plan template. And by now you should have had some time from last week's episode to get some of the ideas down from there into your workbook, ready to take forward. John, take us through what we're going to cover today.
If you remember, if you turn to pages 10 to 13 of your workbook, then you'll remember that we identified some sources of information on demographics for your local community. So this was part of the situational analysis, community analysis part of the plan, to find ways that we could find out about really how the community is set up and what the demographics are. And then we conducted or went through explaining how to do a SWOT analysis in detail of the CRC itself and how well it's set up to meet the needs of those demographics. And we looked at some achievements and how to record and use the achievements that the CRC's had over the recent while, the last 12 months or so. So that's what we covered last time. Now, as Andrew said, we're going to be looking at a thing called mind mapping and mind maps.
We're not going inside your mind. Please tell me that.
That was the blank part of the slide, actually.
Yeah.
The thing about mind maps is it's a technique that sort of first got documented around about the 1970s by a guy called Tony Buzan in the UK. But it's used extensively now in business and organisations. And it's a great way to quickly generate and connect ideas. So you put a whole lot of minds together and think and work on a particular topic and generate ideas from each other. So the other thing that mind mapping does is it stimulates discussion, because when you get a group of minds working together, you think of things that you wouldn't otherwise think of if you were just working by yourself. And it's a great way to record thoughts and ideas and get them documented. So I'm going to show you an example now of a mind map that I quickly put together which could be used for a CRC, but you definitely should come up with your own. This is just an example to show you what a mind map looks like. So here you'll see that the main topic is CRC projects. So it's a mind map to brainstorm projects for your CRC. So you put that topic in the center, and then from that you branch off usually 5 to 8 or 9 main topics. So in this case we've got marketing the CRC, we've got financials, products and services, and so on. You can see them on the screen there. So they're main topics. And then you take each main topic, and as a group you brainstorm ideas from that main topic. So here we've broken down a little bit the marketing the CRC topic and come up with subtopics being website, social media, and I can't read the other one. But the idea is you put as many down as you can. And you can get tools like this, which is a software tool for doing the exercise, or what I find works really well in groups is using a flip chart and post-it notes, would you believe? So you take a topic, you put it in the center of the flip chart, and then using post-it notes you brainstorm ideas around it.
Man, very retro.
And I don't have shares in post-it notes.
You should have.
Should have. So what we're going to do here as an example and show you how that works is we're going to take the subtopic marketing the CRC. My glamorous assistant Andrew here is going to be doing the writing for us, and Ros and I will come up with some ideas. And we're going to focus on the redevelopment of the website project. Okay, so the first thing to do is to put the project in the center of the flip chart, and then start to put the ideas around it using other post-it notes. So what's one of the things that redeveloping the website could do for the CRC? What sort of thing could you put on there? What comes to mind, Ross?
Or upcoming events, news and events for that region.
So promoting events, yep.
Bang, done.
Thank you, Andrew.
Anytime. What else you got for me? What else would you
Tourist information.
Tourist info?
Yep.
Yep.
And you could also get testimonials from people who've used the CRC. So that's a great way to market the CRC. Get some people to do video testimonials. Capture them with a smartphone.
I'm going to write video because testimonials is a particularly long word to be putting on a post-it note.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Videos is fine.
And I guess the history of the area, the region.
Yep, promote the regional area, environment.
So the history,
Yep,
beautiful.
and good news stories.
I've got to just learn to write again. It's okay. Be reassured, I can do it.
I'm giving you the long ones on purpose.
Yeah, I know. History, and what was that other one? Something about the local environment?
About the environment and the community.
Yep. Community.
Again, that's good for the tourists. So you see, the idea is to build up the ideas around the central topic and just write them up on the post-it notes, because we're going to use some of the post-it notes again in the next part of the process, which is to prioritise.
And I guess, can I say, like, partners logos, so that you can have a cross-reference between your website and another agency's website in the region, just to generate traffic back to yours?
Yep, so links, backlinks, links to your social media,
Yeah.
things like that.
And I guess maybe that quick response picture out in the community that links to your website if people arrive in your community and unaware to actually type in CRC at wherever you are.
So you see how the ideas grow, and that's the whole thing about brainstorming and going through this exercise, is that as people come up with ideas, it sparks other ideas in other people as well. So once you've exhausted all the ideas and connected them all up, which is what Andrew is doing now.
So they sort of connect together, local news and community. Actually, local news and
Yeah, so that's the whole point about using post-it notes. You can move things around.
a bit of flexibility. Events sits pretty comfortably. Social media could probably fit in with that, as well as a few places actually.
Events and calendar.
Yeah, and you can always draw lines around groups of events or activities that all relate to each other. So you're starting to get a real good picture of how in this case, the website development would take place.
Yep.
And who to contact? Do we have contacts up there? No.
Almost.
Almost.
You need to write faster, Andrew.
Yes, John. Thank you. Anything else you got for me? I reckon that could almost go into community or on its own.
On its own, perhaps.
And
I think that's a great idea.
And if you wanted to, you could even use a whole different range of colours to depict different things on your mind map.
You could.
So have we got enough ideas there now to...
I think we've got a pretty good start, but I'm sensing there could be more.
There may be just one more. Obviously that's all about content, but I think we all agree the overriding thing is to keep it up to date and relevant. So whatever you decide to include in your website, obviously you need to have some sort of plan to keep that someone's always managing that and keeping it interesting, exciting, and people to want to revisit your website. So
Up
how
to
would we
date
phrase
somewhat.
that?
I'm going to call that current.
Current.
And you got any suggestions in terms of how current things should be, like how often they should be updated?
Well, I guess whatever the plan is within that CRC, that with their social media, that maybe it's allocated to a particular individual.
Yep.
So, that might be a weekly, fortnightly, whenever there's a good news story, it's automatically linked to the website. There would be a number of different approaches, I think, to ensure that it's always relevant. And perhaps to have a minimum that, you know, if no one's, have some sort of roster or some sort of...
Somebody needs to have the responsibility just to do regular updates.
Yeah,
Just
it's
put
got to
it
be a
into the
bring
plan.
up process somehow. Yeah.
Cool. So
Do you
we've
have
got
ideas, Andrew? You're
my
very good
ideas are
across-
far better. They're really good, but you know I
As
don't
we
want to show
knew
you
they would
guys up.
be.
But when you have a look at it, though, even though we've just really thrown this out there, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 7 main ideas and a few flowing off them in just a matter of a couple of minutes.
Yep.
So just what John said earlier, it's just a great way to bang out some ideas really quickly.
So if you've got 5 or 6 people on your board and you're all brainstorming,
Oops.
then
Sometimes.
that's obviously not a very good idea,
Yeah.
that one.
Get rid of
No.
the contacts.
We've dropped that
Nothing.
one. But, and if you don't want to use a flip chart, use a whiteboard. You know, if you need more space, use a
Yeah.
whiteboard and do it on the whiteboard.
It's a play on words. Contact's not
Yeah.
sticking, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's the sign to move on. So, but the point is, by going through this process, you will come up with lots of ideas for projects and activities. So once you've gone through that process, the next thing is, well, how do we prioritise those? You know, we've obviously got a lot of things to do, and this is only one area of the CRC. So how do we actually get it down to the ones that we should do first? So let's talk about that. So prioritisation, we're going to show you another tool now called a prioritisation grid. And this is where you take all the opportunities that you've come up with and identify which ideas and projects will have the greatest impact. So it's a very simple technique, and it's about looking at which ideas, which projects will have the greatest impact and you have the greatest capacity to do them, and then put them into a priority order. So we're going to go to a new flip chart now to demonstrate how that works.
Beautiful. Let's do that. And we're going to use these ideas, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Alrighty. That's a great plan. I'll just quickly grab them out of there. And this is...
I would help you, but I'm chained to the desk.
Yes, well, that's for good reason too. I'm surprised they still feed you, to be honest. But anyway, that's always a good thing. And what while we're demonstrating this to you live rather than anything else is to show the simplicity of the exercise and its flexibility. You can pretty much do it anywhere, anytime. The only thing we've done showing, we have prepared something a little earlier. So this is the grid John talked about in terms of we'll look at each of these projects based on the impact that they're going to have for the CRC and the capacity of the CRC to implement them. So I'm going to use you guys as the people who will make the judgment calls. So you can be the judging panel, and for once I'll do as you tell me to do. Does that sound reasonable? So go
We
through.
have this on film.
So through each of the ideas, what we'll do is we'll say, if we used video, what would be in the website? What would be the impact, and what capacity do we have to use it? And once we've put that in there, it'll show what priority this project will be, and we'll go through that once we've completed the exercise. So my challenge to you is to tell me, using video, would that have a high impact for the CRC or a low impact?
I think it would have a high impact in terms of viewers and people accessing the website,
Cool.
particularly the younger generation. Yeah, that's their media that they're used to.
And what do you reckon is the capacity of a CRC to do this?
Very easy.
So you're talking high?
Yeah.
Yep. Okie dokie. Cool, done. So that one sticks there. What about putting links on the website? Links to other organisations? What impact would that have?
A very high impact because
Yep.
it works when you're asleep.
Cool.
So especially if you've got a vice versa arrangement happening, so that other people accessing your partner's website or your sponsor's website are then linked back to yours.
Okay, and what do you think would be the capacity of a normal CRC to do that?
Very easy.
Piece of cake?
Yeah.
Cool.
The other thing about having links back to your website as well is that it improves your rankings in the search engines.
Yes.
So,
yes,
you know, it's
very
a double
important. Yes.
Beautiful. Having
And search words.
tourist information, what impact would that have for a CRC?
Well, it brings a new clientele.
Yep.
So that's
Yeah, it will depend on the CRC as to what sort of area they're in and how popular it is with tourists. But so it could be very high, or it may be lower if it's a different area. But Put it somewhere in the middle, I think.
What would be the capacity to have tourist information on there?
Easy, because it's just, I mean,
So
once you draft it, it's developed, and particularly if you produce resources and merchandise that you mentioned earlier,
Yep.
yeah, it's a good little income stream.
Having the calendar on there, what would impact would that be?
I think that's a really high impact because it works all year round, pardon the pun. And I think the important thing with the calendar is to have events listed for a particular week in a month. So maybe if you have annual races, it's listed as the second Sunday in March or whatever. So whilst you may not have the following calendar year up for the next year, people can plan ahead by knowing, oh, it's going to be the second Sunday in the in the next year, in that whatever.
And for the average CRC, putting a calendar on there, how is that challenging? Is that easy?
No, it's not labour intensive at all. Very easy.
Easy. So it's saying again another
And
high
it
impact.
self promotes.
Yep. Cool. And let's just choose one more. Let's say having local history on there. What impact would that have for the CRC? Would that be high impact?
No, I don't think it'd be high impact.
Yep.
Myself.
And
no.
capacity to do it?
Really easy.
Cool. So let's maybe, rather than going through all the ideas, I just want to give the viewers the example of how to go through the process. So what we've done there is quickly identified what are the priorities of some of the projects that came through from the brainstorming exercise. And looking at this, you can see over here we've got some that are high impact and high capacity ones. They're the ones like the calendar, the video and the links. Here we've got ones that maybe not such a high impact, but there's still quite a strong capacity there. And as you go through all of the projects, you may see some that still have a high impact, but the capacity may not be there. The CRC may not have the resources, or may not have the budgeting to do it, or there may not be funding, or there may not actually be the skill set to do that yet. Down here, there'll be projects that may sit there where actually, when we look at it in the light of day, they're not really going to be high impact ones, and we don't have a lot of capacity for them. And so that helps us to categorise the projects. And I'll talk about those categories in just a moment. John, if you could flip to the slide for me, please. So our first quadrant, which is in Quadrant A, we put up 3 ideas, which were the links, the video and the calendar. As you can see, links, video, calendar. So those are the projects you're really going to need to focus on in the short term, because as you can see, they're high impact. You've got the capacity in terms of the resources and people to do it. So that's the one, the next 3-6 months, you should really nail those projects and get stuck into them. The second quadrant, which is Quadrant B, is where there's still going to be high impact projects, but probably the resources aren't there. You might not have the people with the expertise, you may not have the funding capacity just yet. And some examples that we've come up with there are things like social media. It can have a high impact, but you need somebody who understands how to use it, how to set it up, all those type of things. Things like setting up, having your contact list, that takes a bit of time. It can have high value, but it's still got to get permissions, you've got to get all the people, got to make sure it's all current. It's a bit of work to be done there. And the other one we put there, again, would have having local news would probably have a high impact for your website. There's still the effort in getting media releases, going and finding the stories, getting the pictures, the people in there. So that can be a bit of a challenge, and you may need somebody with some good media skills to be able to do that. Let's move across to Quadrant C. So in Quadrant C, that's where you can actually get some wins on the board, because it's still got a fair bit of capacity. The impact's not as strong, but it's a good way to actually get some confidence in people there. So things like getting a bit of your local history there, or tourist information. You may not get it overrun with tourists and new business, but it's still going to bring some value into the CRC. And the final one there is Quadrant D, and that's one which is probably something you need to come back to later on. It's an area where any ideas in there aren't really going to have a lot of impact, and there's not a massive amount of capacity there. And I'm certainly with my website, I'm very guilty of this, is archiving, getting all the old stories, putting them out off the main area of the website, doing all that kind of work. It's laborious. For me, I've got shiny object syndrome. I just don't pay attention to stuff, to detail. So in addition to shiny head, shiny object syndrome for me. So archiving I would rather set myself on fire. I'm not suggesting you do that. I don't think that's a very good idea. For me, it's not going to make any difference at all to my looks. So archiving is something low impact, low capacity. Sit in Quadrant D, revisit it maybe when you've got some resources in, somebody who's got those sort of skills to do it. So that's our prioritisation grid. And again, just to really focus in on the areas of high impact, high capacity, that's where you're going to get greatest return for your investment of your time. John, anything from you in terms of prioritisation?
No, I think you've covered it extremely well, Andrew.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, but it's a key part of the process and not something to be rushed. It needs to be thought about. And I've found when I've done this in the CRCs that this is probably where quite a large proportion of the time has been spent in discussing and working out which projects go in which quadrant. So, very useful exercise. Shall we move on?
I reckon.
To summarise what we've covered today, we've talked about and looked at mind mapping as a process for brainstorming and coming up with projects and ideas for the CRC. And then Andrew showed us a very good way of prioritising those projects and ideas using a prioritisation grid. So it's been a very active day. We've done a lot of work, and now you need to do the same as we've done with your board and get all those ideas and projects down and put into some sort of priority order. Because in the next episode, we're going to be looking at how those projects and what the outcomes are and how they relate to the Department of Regional Development requirements. So it's very important that you do that work before the next episode. And that's about it. It's goodbye from Ross and goodbye from Andrew and goodbye from me, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, guys. It's been great working with you.